You're also confusing social Darwinism with evolution. Two separate things. Okay, evolution is about how life evolves and DNA. Social Darwinism is an outdated theory about the survival of the fittest.
Bam. So it's an outdated theory. Survival of the fittest is an outdated theory. And I guarantee you there's not an atheist evolutionist that catches him on that or comments in that direction. They purposely overlook the inconsistencies in their own atheistic evolutionary dogma.
Came about early on in the idea of evolution when they tried to apply that to social norms, but that's not the case either. You say that man is made in God's image. Well, why does God have a dick? Why does God have a digestive system?
Okay, first off, God does not have a body like you and I. God is a spirit, and we worship Him in spirit and in truth. Jesus Christ is the Son of God who provides a mechanism or a vehicle by which we are saved. God humbled Himself, if you can follow, and became a man so that we would have a payment for sin, a righteous and just and holy payment for sin.
Ended up talking about how in the beginning there was God. So let me ask you this. Did God pop into existence one day? Oh.
He exists and always will. He has no beginning and no end. He's eternal. Science understands the concept here because they apply matter and energy as eternal and always. So don't think that you can't comprehend something always existing or never having an end, because science is claiming that matter itself is eternal. I'm saying matter, unintelligent matter, is not eternal. Energy is not eternal. God is eternal. He's the starting point of all things.
Now let's get to the PWNAGE. Now, the problem I'm seeing with you, and this was a problem with me also, was that we were taught about God before we even went to kindergarten.
Brainwashed to the lie. Think that you have freed yourself from brainwashing by becoming an atheist is naive. It is naive. There is just as much brainwashing going on in the scientific sector as in the religious sector. I mean, we have brainwashing everywhere. I mean, I agree. Study these things out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm certainly not going to take Cosmic Zen's word for it. I got to study it out for myself. And I've studied out my faith for myself. I have formulated these understandings because of the information I have read and gleaned. But ultimately, why I'm a Christian, why I believe in God, is because I've been touched. I've been touched by God. God has intersected in my life and has helped me open my eyes. I was once blind and now I see.
We even went to school, we went to Sunday school, and our parents believed in God. And when you get those answers so young, before you know anything about any other subject, they get hardwired into the brain and they influence all of your thought patterns for the rest of your life. Unless you're lucky enough to be intellectual and break past those things.
Okay. You're only an intellectual if you can break past the hardwiring of your parents and their indoctrination. What about all those children being indoctrinated now that have no God at all? I mean, their parents are flat-out atheists or secular humanists, and children from these families become Christians. I mean, that's a possibility. It happens. Ultimately, we all make our own decisions. We all do.
You seem like a fairly smart guy, and I know many smart Christians. My dad, he was a rocket scientist at NASA, and he was a hardcore Christian fundamentalist. And
okay, his father, rocket scientist, Christian rocket scientist, but he spends his whole time honing me and calling me an intellectual inferior insulting me, all the while his father is in my camp, and he's insulting his own father by insulting me. This is so hypocritical and ridiculous. I don't know if anybody else catches this, but this is just insulting to his father.
It kind of pains me to say it, there are many, many smart Christians. Just because you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew doesn't mean you're dumb. But it does mean that when it comes to believing in these impossibilities, you leave rationality and thought behind and go into this stupid zone.
Okay, it is rational to believe that there is a cause for the things around us. It's rational, it's logical. If something exists, something must necessarily exist to put it there. That's pure logic. Pure, unrefutable logic. Things don't pop into existence from nothing. Do you see the gravity of that? Now, as a Christian, a Bible-believing, God-fearing Christian, I attribute that something, life, to God's handiwork. That shouldn't be hard for you to imagine. And your father, a rocket scientist, embraced this very same fact as well. And you call us intellectually inferior because we take a position of logic? Who's pawning who?
Zone, you believe any kind of impossibilities just because the book says so. Just because your parents taught you that when you were a kid.
Okay, just because Richard Dawkins tells you that God doesn't exist, you don't have to believe it. Just because Darwinian evolution and the origin of species tells you that we came from the primordial slime, you don't have to believe it. We have authoritarian figures in our lives, Christian, atheist. You don't have to believe everything that comes out of the mouth of an authority. You have to do the research on your own.
It's the end-all, know-all of all science. Are you? Do you even care? Probably not. Because you're happy.
You know, again, these assumptions. What's the idiom? When you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and me. It's just this whole video is basically an assumption.
It's not only intellectually dishonest, it's intellectually retarded. You have a responsibility to educate yourself. You can't depend on the state or your parents or any certain book. You get all your answers from one book. You get your answers from guys who didn't even know how to wash their hands after they took a crap. You get your answers from... Let me give you some real wisdom. Wash your hands after you take a crap.
This is one big joke for these guys.
The lesson you need to learn is research. And that's why I've gone to the time to put all those links in the notes. There's not much there that I didn't know already. And like I said, I could have easily refuted any of these points.
Yeah.
The point I want to show is exactly why you're intellectually inferior. You see, if you had taken the time to research these things and educate yourself and increase your intellect, you would find out the same things that I know, that all the intellectuals know. Science is knowledge, and that together we're building a body of knowledge so that we can advance the human race.
Where are we taking the human race? Where are we taking it? Science starts genetically modifying our food, and we're basically self-defeating ourselves. When science creates the atom bomb, thank you science, and then annihilates and brings a threat to the world, like an unprecedented threat, how do you blame that on Jesus Christ? You want to blame everything, all the evils of the world on Christians and people of faith. You got to take into account all the godless science out there building the war machine. For what purpose? To annihilate this world. And we're going to genetically modify our food stock and then make it virtually impossible for the small village farmer to produce a renewable food source and literally annihilate him through commercialization of insecticides that have to be applied upon food to make it grow.
That you have this one-track mind that's been going on since before kindergarten. The book that you got in your hands before kindergarten. Intellectually corrupt. You have no grasp of reality.
Atheists believe that all of life has originated from a rock. A lifeless rock. And from that lifeless rock sprung all the intelligent beings that they claim to be.
But let there be no mistake. I am the Antichrist. I am the Antichrist.